Okay, so I have another new pen today, and this is another maker that I've been aware of since probably 2014 or 2015. And they had a list at the time when I first got into pens, and I wasn't really into the maker pens at that point, so I didn't try and get on the list. But now, coming back in and really enjoying maker pens, one of these popped up the other day. There was only one, and I was able to snag it. So this is from Matthew Martin, and he's a pen maker out of South Carolina. Matthew Martin Makes is how everything goes. And I did go in and just cut this box because it was taped very well, which you can appreciate for packing material. So just kind of get that out of there. Basic paper wrap. Okay, see if this is just an invoice. Yep, just an invoice, which we don't need to look at that. So let's get to the pen. So just some packing material here. Put that to the side. Okay, so here we have the model is called the OG1. And let me put this over and just kind of show this on the side camera. I do like this very simplistic packaging, actually, because most of the boxes just are going to end up either in the trash or off somewhere. So this long Ziploc is actually a great thing. But let's get this pen out of here, take a look at it, and then we'll get it inked up and do some writing. So for now, I'll leave this card in the bag, but I will go on and pull that out later because I don't anticipate using or putting the pen back in this bag. This bag will probably be used for sending someone else, but it shows here that this pen was completed in July of 2025. This is an all peak smooth squared clipless, and this is the 244th OG1 that was made. And you've got Matthew has it signed, designed, machined, assembled, and finished all in South Carolina. And let me see if I can get this out because it does look like there's some more typing inside of there. So I don't know if it's just talking about him or talking about the pen, but make sure I look at that so I don't do something silly when filling this up. Let's get that put to the side. Okay, so I am glad I pulled this out. It has, if you're doing a rollerball, he has kind of a standard thing here, and I'll show it to the side as well, that if you're doing rollerball, it'll take a G2. With an adapter, you could do a Parker. Now, this is a fountain pen, so it does have a Yovo number 6, and it'll take a Schmidt K5 or any kind of normal converter. And then he has a little thing here. Congratulations, you're now in possession of a carefully crafted one-of-a-kind writing instrument. Enjoy. Just kind of general care items that are kind of the same for all fountain pens. And he has a warranty on there that covers repair, replace, or refund. Doesn't cover modification, use marks, or patina, and that's the good stuff. So hopefully this has a cool patina that develops. And some contact information, but let's get to the pen. So this is my first pen out of Peak. These engineered plastics are really intriguing. You've got the Peak, the Ultim, and some of those others, but I really liked the simplistic design of this. So you can see it's mostly kind of like a taupe plastic, but then it has just the minor little accent lines, and that really, something about that look was really appealing to me. And you can see the nib does appear large on this pen, but I also kind of like that because it makes the nib prominent. Now, I don't know if this is the nib that'll stay on here. I believe he only had the one option of fine, and this is a fine nib. It's marked. So I might end up putting a different Yovo number 6 extra fine on here, or maybe a needle point. I'm going to have a couple ground. Someone's doing a favor for me soon and picking those up at the Dallas Pen Show. But for now, I'll use the fine nib because even with some Yovo fines, I do have a couple that are in, like my Diplomat Arrow has a fine. So there are a few cases where the fine writes more on the extra fine side, and it's fine, no pun intended, and I don't have to swap the nibs out. So let's get this inked up and do a little bit of a writing sample with this, and then just kind of talk through. And before I do that, look at the little detail here. Just the little lines in the section, just the little detail, the reverse taper coming down to the threads this is just a cool looking pen. A lot of these OG1s are made out of different metals. And while that would be nice, I liked the simplistic kind of utilitarian look of this peak. So that's what I went with this time. So let me grab the ink materials, which I already kind of set here, so don't have to do a large cut. What I'm going to be using today for ink is actually, and just a side note, I was using this Pengineer 3D when I filmed the last video, and it actually caught an ink spill inside of this. So I washed it out before doing this, but you can see there's still a little bit of residue. So I'm not going to set this down, but I'm going to be using the TWSBI Forest Green ink. And this is actually an ink that I got in the first Gentleman Stationer mystery box when he released that a while back. So, and actually before I do this, I did get a new desk mat that is easier to clean in theory if I were to make a mess, but let's try and avoid a mess. Do this on top of a paper towel just in case. But this stand, I've mentioned it a few times. It's been great for holding these ink bottles up, especially while filming, because your brain is doing multiple things. So just get that down in there. Get the air out. And I went with a green ink for this because I wanted something that would really contrast against that peak's color. I wanted a visually different look, and I thought a nice vibrant green would do just that. Now I might need to go wet this towel because I didn't anticipate or think about the little ridges in there because I just opened this up. So let me see what I can do, see if I can get it cleaned off enough to continue doing the writing sample. If not, I can always clean that up after. Let's get the ink bottle closed up here so we don't make a big mess. So I'm going to step away for a second, clean this off real good, and then I'll be back and we'll finish out the inking and whatnot. You'll see it here in a second, so I'll return momentarily. Okay, so I did not get it perfect, but I got it good enough, and I think for future reference, I will be filling the converter, or syringe filling the converter, and not dipping this peak into the ink bottle because of those little ridges, but should be able to get it cleaned out. Well, I'll probably throw it in the ultrasonic and get those flushed out so that way it doesn't leave any staining. But let's get into some writing. So as you can see, I'm going to be using the bank paper again today. I'm really enjoying the bank paper more, and I really hate that it's being discontinued because I really like how inks are showing up on it. So get to writing here. And I do like how this fits my hand. I still have the wider body, and my fingers kind of perfectly sit in the little crooks of the section. Sorry for my inky fingers, as you can imagine, getting that cleaned up and cleaning up the Pengineer 3D thing before starting. That ink is going to be there for a bit. So let's get this here. This is the Matthew Martin OG1. And this is a fine nib. And this is the TWSBI Forest Green ink. And these TWSBI inks, I don't own a lot of them yet, but it's kind of like the Lamy Crystal. TWSBI, you think of pens, you don't necessarily think about the inks that they have, but from what I've seen, they're actually decent performing inks, but that kind of get a back burner to some of the more ink-centric brands or options. So these are some other ones that I plan on, especially since they have them in these small bottles, picking up a few more just to play around with some to see if I do like them. I do like this Forest Green that I got, and it was a great first impression. It was my first ever TWSBI ink that I had tried. So I do look forward to picking up some more of those, and I know Gentleman Stationer, being local, has those little bottles and has, I think, like a box that's a variety pack. So I'll definitely pick some of those up. But you can see, standard Yovo nib, as we would expect. We're not going to get a ton of variation out of a steel nib, especially a fine or extra fine. But this does have a nice flow and consistency to it. And I do just the look. the look of how that nib is prominent on here, and especially if I put a different nib on there that has a different grind or something, because the engraving on this one, I don't think I showed it. This is a Fountain Pen Revolution. FPR is on the if I can get the light to cooperate. So this is a Fountain Pen Revolution Yovo. But, you can see it's got good flow. The ink is showing down. You can even see a little bit of variation of the ink on this Life Bank paper. So, and this is a all peak model. And it is number 244 for the OG1 model. So I look forward to using this some. It's very... Most maker pens you see now are more vibrant materials, and I kind of like the utilitarian single color look of this peak, just to have a bit of variety. I love all the colors and options that there are, but there's something to be said about the simplicity of having just a kind of nondescript pen that's a great writer and just has a cool story, all made in-house by one person, and who's been doing it for, like I said, I think I first came across Matthew Martin in 2014, maybe 2015. So at least over a decade now. So very cool to finally own one of these. I know there's a couple people online who have, probably the best curated collections, and whenever they post pictures of the Matthew Martins, it always has piqued that curiosity. So owning one now, I think, is going to be cool. And it's another maker to add to the list, and somebody who I think I want to contact and see if I could get them on a future podcast episode, because I think that would be an interesting interview as well, just talking about, because they work in some cool materials of obviously the engineered plastics like Peak. They have a lot of metal work, and then there's one they have on their site currently that, if it hasn't sold as of the time of the filming of this, was like a zirconium that was just gorgeous, but it was more than I wanted to put towards another pen at this point in time. But definitely I'll put a link to Matthew Martin's website in the video description. He makes pens and then releases them when he's ready to release them, which I also kind of appreciate. You get a chance, you can sign up from the newsletter, and that's what happened to me. I was on the newsletter and it popped up. I was able to be the first person to hit checkout on this one. So it came home, and now I look forward to putting it to use. If you're new to the channel, I appreciate you taking some time to follow along as we go through all these pens and stationery items. And until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.